Take me to the place in the middle of the sun. And we'll sing this song, sing it one by one.
Hey, Love Tribe.
What's going on, guys? Thank you for tuning in. We are happy to have you here, wherever you're joining us from, whatever you're doing.
Yeah, we have a super yummy episode for you today.
Oh, yeah. We talk about the essential elements of lifelong happiness with Dr. Diane Gehart, and she is an accomplished practitioner, professor in research of psychotherapy for over 20 years. And the reason Sarah said it's yummy is because her new book is Mindfulness for Chocolate Lovers, a Lighthearted Way to Stress Less, Savor More each day. And that involves chocolate. So who doesn't want to stress less? Eat some chocolate, develop your mindfulness, and improve your life, improve your relationship. And Diane gives us some great tips, a little bit outside the box of how to approach mindfulness, why it will improve your relationship, how to do that. And, yeah, the key is chocolate here.
Yes. I was about to say, bring in the chocolate. And
now we're talking.
Exactly. Now, it was a wonderful interview and kind of from a different perspective that I haven't heard before about incorporating meditation into the relationship via chocolate. So
that's one way.
Yeah, that's one way. We won't give you all the ways. You have to listen to the episode to hear all of them, but just a teaser, break out the chocolate for this episode.
Yeah. And thank you guys for tuning in, sending us those emails, leaving reviews on iTunes, and telling your friends and family. We kind of discontinued the summer Tell Your Friends and Family pledge drive that I came up with.
I forgot about that.
During one intro, like a few months ago. It was kind of a joke, but it does help us out a ton because we feel that that's how people really discover the podcast is you guys sharing them and tuning in. So we really appreciate that. Enjoy today's show.
Today's show is brought to you by our online course, Spark My Relationship. Create more passion, improve your communication, and build a stronger, more intimate connection with your partner in less than 90 days. We've collaborated with 15 therapists and psychologists to bring you the strategies marriage therapists teach their clients. To unlock a special offer only for I Do Podcast listeners, visit sparkmyrelationship.com/unlock. That's sparkmyrelationship.com/unlock. Hi, Diane. Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me.
Today, we're going to talk about a big one and an important subject for individuals and certainly people in relationships, and that is tapping into the essential elements of lifelong happiness. And who doesn't want that? And I know you have a new book in some very interesting ways that we can do this, but we thought a good place to start might be with some of the myths about happiness.
Certainly, and there are a lot out there, and unfortunately, many of us are seeking happiness, but we are looking for it in all the wrong places. And there's actually a whole branch of psychology called positive psychology, where there are people out there researching what actually makes us happy. And a lot of it goes against kind of the everyday advice that we get or what we see in the movies. So one of the big myths out there is that more money will bring you happiness. And I mean, who doesn't have, fantasies of a huge windfall or winning the lottery somehow? And wow, that'll take care of all the problems I have today. And it seems so intuitively correct, but it's a myth and it's wrong. And so what the research actually shows is that in contemporary society, basically between once you make enough money to meet your basic needs, and that's kind of in worldwide studies. Some studies actually identify 100,000 to about 250,000, 250,000. In there, once you make over that amount, there is no measurable effect on your happiness. And actually, as you make more money, happiness rates actually go down slightly at the top levels of earners. And I certainly see this in my private practice all the time. And the thing, so this idea that having more money is going to solve your problems so you won't have stress just doesn't bear out in terms of what actually happens. A good example are the lottery winners. So, people can become millionaires, multimillionaires overnight, and it's very exciting. But what happens and what we find is within 6 to 12 months, often those happiness levels go back to where they were before they won or even lower. And that is just because of how the mind works in terms of getting our needs met. And so, once you get that big windfall, that you may have 2 or 3 months of really good times and life is great. But after that, we kind of go back to our default setting. And that is where we're finding that you really have to change your attitude and your approach to seeking happiness is really where you find the lifelong happiness. So very similarly, another myth is once you reach these great goals or goals that you set for yourself, that you're going to actually have more happiness. So you get that big promotion, you get married, you have a child, you buy your first home. When you're pursuing the goal, it feels like, God, once I get that, life's going to be so much better and so much, I'm going to be so much happier. And it's true for about 3 months. And after 3 months, you go back to that default level of happiness. And interestingly enough, a major exception to this would be marriage. And what we do know is that people who are happily married are happier than average. And if you can have a happy relationship, that does significantly increase your happiness. However, if you're unhappily married, you are the least happy in society. So it's better to be single or divorced than very unhappily married. So that's just another common myth we have around happiness and what really makes us happy.
So what would be the first step I know in your book you mentioned that happiness is a life skill. So how would you go about taking those first steps to developing those life skills to live a happier life?
So yeah, and that's exactly it. So approaching happiness as more as something that you do, and a lot of it comes down to how you choose to see things, than it is something that happens to you. And I think the natural way our mind seems to be wired is that we want to reorganize the entire world outside of us to make us happy and feel safe and comfortable. And when you pursue that route to happiness, you become what many people will call a control freak, because you're trying to control all of those elements. And so some of the first steps is learning to choose and actually choosing to see life in more positive ways. So one of the things that we do know is that people who are pessimistic, who tend to see bad things as always happening and the good things as exceptions, they are definitely less happy than the rest of us. Optimists, they tend to see good things happening as the default setting in life and how things tend to happen, and they see those bad things happening as exceptions to it. And another real important point there is when something you don't want happens or bad things happen, to look at, first ask yourself, is there anything I did to contribute to this? And then looking for what could you do different next time. And versus if you get into this habit, which is very common in our society, I would say, where we get into blaming. If only someone else didn't do this, I wouldn't be feeling that way. And when you get into that habit, and sometimes we unintentionally do this with our partners or our friends who are trying to be supportive. So-and-so shouldn't have done that to you. That's awful. Or that shouldn't have happened. When we start to even support each other that way, we create habits of mind that really lead to a lot of unhappiness because you don't feel empowered to make changes. You don't see how you can make things different next time. And you begin to have this perception that you're a victim of life rather than someone who can make choices to have a happier life.
In the context of relationships, what's been really valuable to me, especially in Sarah and I's, is to not be looking to Sarah for my happiness. I feel like our first impulse, at least mine, is in relation to our marriage. If I have something that I think would make me happier within that context, it's like, well, those external things have to change. And that, it falls in line with more money is going to make me happier. These are all external things, and it seems so simple, but it's really changing our framework and the way we think and looking within to bring it back to a relationship. What can I change? What can I do differently to be happier within the relationship? And it starts with ourselves.
Absolutely, absolutely. And a lot of the leading marriage therapy approaches, the emphasis really is on learning to accept your partner the way he or she is and not personalizing some of those differences, which is so easy to do in a committed relationship. Over time, you bump into each other, your feelings get hurt, and you tend to personalize things that are often not personal. And so learning, stepping back and looking at, and to be very realistic about what you're going to change in your partner and what you can ask for them to do differently. And so doing a lot of work on your own end in terms of what did I do to create this situation that I don't like very much or that didn't make me happy? And what steps can I do to make things better? And the trick often in that is not personalizing it. So I'll take a real common one, just a partner who is more introverted versus a partner who's more extroverted. So you got the extrovert coming home, and extroverts talk to think. So they come home and they're talking out loud to think, and they're putting their thoughts together. And this is just how they connect. It's how they process. And if you have, on the other hand, an introvert, most couples are an extrovert-introvert match. And so the introvert, though, they come home and let's say they've had a stressful day at work. Their process is they need to go inside. They need to reflect on their day. And they need to kind of go inward to kind of reconnect with themselves in order to find balance. And so you've got two people with like polar opposite processes for how they need to debrief at the end of the day. And it can for the extrovert, it can feel like, well, my partner's not interested in me. They don't care about my day. They don't care about me. I come home, I want to share. They don't want to listen. And that really hurts me. And so they begin to personalize this as like, my partner doesn't love me. And, and in reverse, the introvert can come home. It's like, my God, I'm asking for 10 to 15 minutes to decompress at the end of the day. And there is no space for that. And my partner can't respect that. And I'm just supposed to be at their beck and call 24/7, where it's too much for me to just be processing all the time. And so it's very easy for either partner to personalize. The other person doesn't care. It's really not personal. It's just they handle stress. They handle that internal dialogue in very different ways. Because an extrovert an introvert will go in and they're thinking through everything. And when the introvert finally speaks, they need not to be interrupted if they're delivering a very important message about how they're feeling, or when they're talking about how they're being vulnerable. Where the introvert thinks they're being very polite and connecting and being in sync by finishing their sentences, the introvert is just feeling very disrespected. And it's not personal. It's just two very different ways that people tend to process emotionally.
Sounds a bit like Sarah and I's dynamic.
I think it's most couples' dynamic.
I definitely talk to think, as listeners of this podcast know. Sometimes I can just ramble on, but it's like I'm thinking. I'll stop.
You're thinking through it.
Yeah, but not personalizing it be super valuable, and that's a good habit to create to lead to more relationship satisfaction and happiness. What are some other habits that we can do in regards to happiness within the context of the relationship?
Well, I do a lot of work with mindfulness and even with my couples. And couples don't need to develop a, formal meditation or mindfulness routine. But developing rituals as a couple, and I mean rituals in a very lowercase r way, in the sense of you do something every night to connect. And I think the most important habit for a couple to develop is to have 5 good minutes of attuned communication where each partner is truly like tuned into the other. You don't need gobs of time. I mean, date night is wonderful, but I know a lot of couples, especially once kids enter into the picture, that becomes very difficult for at least a decade for many couples. And so, but 5 minutes where you are totally tuned into your partner, you've tuned out the rest of the world, and you're really checking in to see where your partner is, sharing where you're at, and of being very present. And simple mindfulness practices like just ringing a chime, listening to it for 60 seconds to make yourself present can be helpful for some couples. Or, if both people are into doing some mindfulness breathing, that's great. My latest book, I talk about, how to do chocolate meditation, taking a piece of chocolate, eating it mindfully, anything that brings you into the present moment so that you can look into your partner's eyes and really be there, not have your mind half at work, not be worrying about the kids, but, that 5 minutes of just being present, it keeps you connected. And in our 24/7 nonstop information-soaked world, attention is the number one thing. And we need our partner's attentions. It's very important for humans to feel emotionally connected to another human being, to have that safe person. And honest to God, it only takes 5 minutes of quality time like that every day to keep that connection going in most relationships, especially if they're in a good place. You want to prioritize a few minutes where you really attune to your partner. Many of us take the time to do that with our kids, but we don't always do that with our partners, and they become last on the list. When you've got a busy, demanding job, you've got kids, it's like, well, we know our partner's there for us, and so we're going to put them 3rd, 4th, or 5th on that list, or even lower. And I'm too tired at the end of the day to tune into you. But making it, and that's where making it a habit, a ritual, where, upon coming home, at dinner time, after dinner, after cleaning up the kitchen, whatever it is, but finding some time like that, at the very least. If you can't do that on a daily basis, take an hour, go to coffee on Saturday, Sunday morning, and really be present with each other. Cell phones off, no digital anything, but just connecting.
Now, Chase and I are both huge chocolate lovers. So when you said that, both of our eyes lit up like, yes, we would love to incorporate that into our life. Now, can you talk a little bit more about incorporating chocolate into meditation? Let's take a break to talk about today's sponsors. Today's episode is brought to you by Mint.
If you're still using one of the big wireless providers in 2019, have you asked yourself what you're paying for? Between expensive retail stores, inflated prices, and hidden fees, you're being taken advantage of because they know you'll pay. And that's where Mint Mobile comes in. Mint Mobile provides the same premium network coverage you're used to, but at a fraction of the cost because everything is online. That's where everything's going these days. That's why you save money.
Yeah.
You're listening to this podcast online. We don't have a radio station to pay for, and that's why we can give it away for free and get sponsors like Mint Mobile to help us out a little bit.
So starting at only $15 a month, all of Mint Mobile's plans come with unlimited nationwide text and talk, and you can choose from either 3, 8, or 12 gigabytes of 4G LTE data. You can use your own phone and easily keep your phone number and all its contacts.
So to get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month and get the plan shipped to your door for free, go to mintmobile.com/IDO. That's MINT mobile, MOBILE.com/IDO. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/IDO.
Ditch your old wireless bill and start saving with Mint Mobile today. Today's episode is also sponsored by our course, Spark My Relationship.
We started I Do Podcast to get information to improve our own relationship. We thought at the very least we'll be able to do that, and then to share it with our listeners. The guests are great, and we've gotten a ton of valuable information, but we found that if we don't actually deliberately take the time to implement the strategies and tools that our guests give us, we weren't seeing the real lasting benefits that we desired in our relationship. And that's why we created the Spark My Relationship course. We've collaborated with 15 psychologists and therapists to create a comprehensive relationship course that not only teaches you the skills needed to create a successful and lasting relationship, but the tools to execute it.
By enrolling in the online course, you'll have access to the same strategies and tools that marriage therapists teach their clients, including therapist-taught video lessons with workbooks and exercises to help you work towards accomplishing your relationship goals in less than 90 days. You'll also learn how to detox unhelpful relationship habits and learn healthy ways to interact. You'll learn how to disagree respectfully and communicate mindfully, as well as how to improve intimacy and reignite your sex life, and so much more. Spark My Relationship isn't just a course for struggling couples. It's a course for couples who want to see their relationship flourish. If this is you, then you are a perfect fit for the course. So for a special offer for our ID podcast listeners, head over to sparkmyrelationship.com/unlock. Again, for 30% off the course, plus special bonuses just for ID podcast listeners, visit sparkmyrelationship.com/unlock.
Absolutely. So I've been teaching mindfulness for over 20 years. And originally, when you teach, the first exercise you typically introduce to folks is eating meditation. It's typically done with raisins, which are very neutral. Well, when I was traveling all over the world, actually teaching mindfulness, those raisin boxes got crushed in my suitcase. So I was like, what can I do instead? And so I started using little pieces of chocolate and where you mindfully eat the chocolate. But with chocolate, what's so nice about that meditation is that it offers opportunities to really watch how your mind deals with frustration, anticipation. So the basic exercise is you get a piece of wrapped chocolate, you try to observe it as if you've never seen it before. And you start by just looking at the light, how it reflects off the wrapper. You know, you can smell it while it's still in the wrapper, just noticing, but trying to notice all of this while quieting your mind's desire to want to judge it as good or bad, comparing it to other chocolates you've eaten, and just try to notice without judging what's going on. And then you unwrap it, you listen to that sound mindfully, and then again, you notice what it looks like without the wrapper on it. And again, you can smell, notice if it's different, the scent is different with or without the wrapper, noticing the colors, the lights, the contour, the textures. And so you're just trying to mindfully observe the chocolate with your eyes, with your nose, and then an important part is you move it towards your mouth. And you want to watch what your body and your mind does with that without taking a bite, just holding it up to your lips. And this is a real important part because it kind of, chocolate meditation sounds like a joke, but it's actually much harder than raisin meditation because we have so many emotions around chocolate for many of us, positive, negative, mixed emotions. And watching your mind, watching the anticipation, watching the frustration, just watching where the mind goes without trying to change it, just noticing and observing it. And that practice kind of helps prepare you for dealing with more difficult emotions. And really, I don't think there's any more difficult emotions than what comes up in a long-term committed partnership and marriage for people. And that ability to begin to observe your mind dealing with a difficult emotion is invaluable. And then you slowly taste the chocolate, and again, trying to taste it without judging it as good or bad, just noticing the flavors and slowly, mindfully eating the chocolate. And this whole practice that can take 3 minutes, it's something you can do as a couple, after dinner as a little dessert, but also to help bring you present, bring you into the present moment. But it's a practice that helps you begin to observe your mind in action, have you experience things without immediately labeling them as good or bad, which is really what gets us into trouble with, in our relationships. We begin to know our partner so well. As soon as we see that like look in their eye, man, we're off. We've judged it. We've played out this whole story in our mind about what's going to happen between, me and my partner for the rest of the day based on that look in their eye. And this practice actually slows down some of that judgment, allows you to pause. And couples can use, I think, chocolate meditation beautifully at the end of the night, either after dinner, after the kids are to bed, whatever it is, to make them present, and then just check in with where each other is. It's a very simple thing to do. Hopefully it's fun. This chocolate is fun for many people. You can substitute fruit or something else if you would like to, if that works better, to just mindfully be present. And again, it's a practice of not judging what you're experiencing and then watching the mind in action. When you create a little bit of, intentional frustration in this practice, to develop the skills to observe your mind without immediately knee-jerk reacting when it is frustrated, when it's excited, when it's anticipating something, and learning to work with that. And that really can play dividends in the relationship when you're dealing with more difficult emotions, typically.
We love this, and we're hungry for some chocolate now. But in all seriousness, it's valuable in a lot of ways. And recently, Sarah and I are coming up on our 10-year anniversary of being together. And in any relationship, but certainly long-term.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We get into these patterns of how we see our partner, how we react, how we communicate. And I like how you describe looking at the piece of chocolate and really observing it and trying to do that as if it's something new every time you're doing this. And I found recently that being valuable in the way I look at Sarah, because we become so comfortable and routine, and you just almost have this picture of who that person is based on all of your programming and the history of the relationship, rather than just looking at them as a new person every day and without all those preconceived judgments, and even something as Sarah's a mother. And that's added a whole layer of who Sarah is. And that kind of thinking that can be developed through this meditation practice, as you described, I think is really valuable.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that is, like I said before, where we get so stuck often with our partners, we start, you get hurt in relationships. We all get hurt, it's inevitable. And when we get hurt in a certain way, we label our partner typically, you're this. And then we begin to look for evidence that our partner is X, uncaring, whatever, fill in the blank, right? And so you begin to look for evidence, and that is just how it starts. And then we, begin to see our partners in these very kind of rigid ways. And that if you can step back and learn to see the exceptions, we all have exceptions. We all do. Even the introvert, there's a time when the introvert, Sarah's going to come home and just be talking up a storm. There are days where it reverses. And so learning to step back, to be able to look at your partner with a fresh mind, and to notice that we're all changing and evolving also. Yes, there's some things that stay the same, but we're also changing. Some marriage experts talk about that every 2 years, it's like you have a different marital contract, not written out, but just our agreements about who's doing what, when, where, and how. And so maybe keeping in mind that this relationship constantly changes as each individual changes. The relationship has to adjust over time, and it just happens so slow when you're in it. You don't notice it. And so, I think exactly what you're saying, if being able to develop, and it's really a discipline and a habit to step back and look at our partner with fresh eyes and being open to the changes that they're making and can make, and the exceptions to their annoying habits, and being able to see the whole person that way it takes discipline. It just takes mental discipline. And that is where mindfulness can be so helpful, because it's easier to see that same piece of chocolate new, and from a fresh new perspective each time, than our partners. But practicing it with mindfulness allows you to transfer that skill to your partner.
Are there any other mindfulness practices that can have a specific benefit in the relationship? Like we're talking about seeing your partner in a new light. What are some other examples of the way mindfulness can translate into the relationship?
Well, with couples, the most common mindfulness-based meditation or practice we recommend is called compassion meditation. And this is a practice where you send kind of goodwill wishes, typically to a neutral person, someone you don't have strong feelings about, positive or negative, to someone you care about. Hopefully that's going to be your partner in this scenario. The third one is someone you have a difficult relationship or a strained relationship. And so if your relationship's in a bad place, your partner may fall into that category some days. And then to yourself, and then to your community or the world, whatever kind of feels right. And, typically when I do this practice, I say, may this person be happy, and joyful in their heart. May this person be healthy and strong, free of illness and pain. And you first do that with a neutral person, the person you feel close to, someone you feel to have a strained relationship, difficult relationship, yourself, and then a larger group. And in general, compared to mindfulness, you normally have a happier mood at the end of all of this. But this practice of cultivating compassion for our partners, it can be very just kind of a reminder to step back and to say to notice we really do want the best. And sending those good wishes for a lot of people, it just helps open their heart, keep them open to their partner, and it makes it easier to feel those loving feelings. And there's so much into the way most of us live our lives in today's world. Just so much multitasking, information constantly coming at us. It's sometimes hard, I think, to feel loving feelings. You need to be focused in the present moment, feeling present in your body, so that you can really feel those feelings, rather than kind of living at a breakneck speed where it's harder to slow down and really feel those softer, gentle feelings.
These things don't happen automatically. They take work. They take consciously developing habits such as meditation, compassion meditation, chocolate meditation. We love this. And really trying to make it a daily habit. Eat 5 minutes of attunement with your partner. It doesn't sound like a lot, but I can tell you, Sarah and I, 10 years together, a vast majority of that time have not taken 5 minutes to just sit down, look at each other in the eye, and communicate directly. And we have a podcast on relationships.
Yeah, even though you know that you need to do it, it's still hard.
Absolutely. And I cannot underscore how true that is. And, I think, and that is where I really go back to 5 days a week, find a ritual, a time that you do this every day, the same time. And after, it should feel more like habit. And even if you don't have the full 5 minutes, do 60 seconds. And this is whether it's being attuned to your partner, if you want to start a mindfulness practice. Even if you don't have the 5 minutes to do it, do 60 seconds. Hon, I'm hoping, how are you doing today? I know we have about 60 seconds right now. Let's just connect. And tomorrow, hopefully, we'll get that 5 minutes. Even saying that is priceless. It really is priceless. As a marriage therapist for over 20 years, that is priceless. And but the key is to connect it to something you do every single day so that it becomes habit. Because otherwise there's so many things competing for our attention in our daily lives that it doesn't happen otherwise. And you just have to, if you need to, put it on your to-do list. I've been practicing mindfulness for 30 years. It's on my to-do list. I check it off every day to make sure it happens. So, because if I don't do it in the morning when I'm supposed to, when I get to work, I get slapped in the face with a reminder. First thing when I, load up, my to-do list for the day. Yes, I'm supposed to meditate. And it really does take discipline when you lead a very busy lives like so many of us do.
When I think about it as something that I just do as part of my daily routine, like brushing my teeth, washing my face, it becomes less of a feeling like I need to do this versus it just is more of a natural habit.
Absolutely. When I try to help people develop a mindfulness practice, I tell them you've got to take it out of this spa-like experience that's just mystical and magical, and you need to treat it like flossing. I don't enjoy flossing, but I do it every day anyway because I have to. And when putting it kind of into a category where it's just got to happen every day, whether you're in the mood to do it or not. And so this is whether working on developing we'll just say 1 to 5 minutes of attuned communication with your partner, 1 to 5 minutes of mindfulness. When you put it in the category is that it's got to happen, whether or not you're in the mood for it, you're going to find a way to make it happen. And that's where you just put it into your daily routine. It's much more likely to happen. And to just not put it on such a grand pedestal or make it so, I don't know, it's got to be done in a certain way that it doesn't happen then. Because there are going to be many days, especially if you've got kids, where you're not going to feel like attuned communication with your partner because you're so kind of tapped out. And it's just, you know what, I'm just going to take 1 to 5 minutes and sit down and connect. And that's what I'm going to do. And you just begin to do it every day because it's just part of what you do.
One of the things before we wrap up that helped me a lot with developing my mindfulness practice in a lot of areas is not judging yourself with the way you're doing it or your lack of doing it. And I found that helped a lot with committing to the practice.
Absolutely. And that's when I teach mindfulness, it's one of the most important lessons I try to really focus on, because I have so many people are like, I can't meditate, my mind always wanders. And I'm like, no, that is it. That's what happens. Your mind wanders and you refocus it, and that's okay. And there's some days you can sit down to practice mindfulness and the mind wanders most of the time. And I think that's a sign, because that can still happen to me after many years of doing it. It's like, wow, I'm stressed out. I think I need to look at my schedule. Is there anything I can take off today's, my plate today so that I'm less stressed? But that is part of the practice and learning to be non-judgmental. And there's a lot of research too that even having an individual mindfulness practice, as you learn to judge yourself less, you judge your partner less. And mindfulness practice has wonderful benefits for relationships in terms of being more patient with our partners, more compassionate, judging our partners less, being able to communicate more clearly and directly. So there are a lot of benefits just with doing, traditional mindfulness meditation also on our relationships.
There are so many, Diane, and you've given us a lot of great tools. One that involves chocolate, which we love. And so if anything, just use it as an excuse to eat chocolate and then develop your mindfulness practice.
Absolutely.
And let's wrap up, Diane, by having you tell our listeners where they can find you online. Tell us about your book, and then we'll say goodbye.
Wonderful. So I have a book that's just come out. It's called Mindfulness for Chocolate Lovers, a lighthearted way to stress less and savor more each day. And it's designed to be a really fun, easily accessible, not intimidating introduction to mindfulness, positive psychology. And it's really about, looking at how can you increase your daily dose of happiness. And there's a website, mindfulnessforchocolatelovers.com, that has lots of recorded meditations. We have chocolate meditation number 1. Chocolate meditation number 2 is working with compassion using white milk and dark chocolate. It's a real fun one too. And actually, the volunteers who did the recording said there's one on befriending your problems meditation, and they actually found that one to be was voted to be their favorite. So you got lots of meditations on there. There's also all worksheets, because the book has a lot of worksheets to help you kind of think through things and apply the ideas to your own life. And you can also learn about my other work at DianeGehart.com, which is DianeGehart.com. Yeah, and I also have a YouTube channel that's got lots of videos, and there are some specifically on couples communication. So that might be of interest to listeners.
Oh, wonderful. Well, we'll have the link to your YouTube channel and your website and your book on our website on the show notes page. And again, thank you so much for joining us today. It was a great interview.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Hi, guys. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. As always, all the links are in the show notes page as well as on the podcast description. And while you're on our website, we encourage you guys to check out our 14-day Happy Couple Challenge. We send you an email for 14 days with simple, doable challenges to help strengthen and improve your relationship. And on our website, we also have a bunch of free resources for your relationship. So we encourage you to check those out. We also have our Love Tribe on Facebook. We encourage you guys to join the tribe and be there for support for each other. If you have questions or just need some relationship advice, we are all here for each other. The group has grown to almost 1,000 people, and we love it. So we hope you guys join that. You can go to Facebook, Love Tribe Fam, and you'll find us right there. And if you are interested in learning more about our flagship course, Spark My Relationship, we hope you guys check it out. We have a special offer that is only for podcast listeners. So you can go to sparkmyrelationship.com/unlock, and you can unlock that special offer and learn more. As always, thank you guys so much, and we'll see you next week.